FOMO doesn't feel like fear. Not at first, not in the moment. It feels like curiosity, like openness, like staying informed, keeping your options available, making sure you don't miss the next big thing. But over time, slowly, imperceptibly, it becomes a tax, paid in focus, paid in depth, paid in follow-through, paid in the ability to commit fully to anything long enough for it to matter. And the people who pay this tax the longest, who bleed the most progress to it, are usually the ones who think they're just being flexible, just being smart, just staying adaptable. Fear of missing out isn't about missing fun. It's not about parties or experiences or travel opportunities. It's about missing validation, the quiet, gnawing worry that somewhere, right now, someone is making a better choice than you. Someone is seeing an opportunity you're blind to. Someone is building momentum while you're standing still. And you're falling behind because you didn't see it soon enough, because you weren't paying attention, because you committed to the wrong thing and now you're trapped. So you keep scanning, monitoring, consuming content, tracking trends, keeping tabs on what everyone else is doing. You keep options open. You hedge. You refuse to commit fully to any single path, because what if something better comes along tomorrow? That's not strategy. That's not awareness. That's not being smart and adaptive. That's anxiety disguised as conscientiousness. Progress requires exclusion. Real progress, the kind that compounds, the kind that creates options and freedom, that only happens when you commit. When you pick something and stay with it long enough for the boring, unsexy middle phase to do its work. Every yes demands multiple no's. Every commitment requires you to close doors, to let opportunities pass, to accept that you can't do everything. FOMO resists that. It wants optionality without cost. It wants to keep every door cracked open just in case. It wants the benefits of commitment without the vulnerability of actually committing. But depth doesn't grow in wide, shallow soil. It doesn't happen when you're spread thin, sampling everything, mastering nothing. It grows where attention stays long enough to matter, where you do the same thing repeatedly until you start seeing patterns others miss, until you develop instinct, until you build real expertise. If you're constantly looking over the fence, constantly evaluating whether the grass is greener, whether you should pivot, whether you're missing out, you're never tending the ground you're standing on, and untended ground produces nothing. FOMO feeds on a lie, a seductive one. There's a better option I just haven't seen yet. So people delay commitment. They wait for clarity. They gather more information. They compare more options. They try to de-risk the decision by seeing all the possibilities before choosing. Meanwhile, time passes, and with it, the compounding that could have been happening. Most breakthroughs don't come from choosing perfectly. They don't come from finding the objectively best option and selecting it with confidence. They come from choosing and staying, from picking something reasonable and giving it enough time to work, from letting experience accumulate, from pushing through the doubt and boredom and plateaus that make most people quit. The perfect opportunity doesn't exist, or rather, it exists in retrospect. You make it perfect by committing to it, by improving it, by staying long enough to see second-order effects. Keeping options open feels smart, feels prudent, feels like you're being strategic, not naive, until it becomes permanent. At some point, usually without you noticing, keeping options open stops being a strategy and becomes a form of avoidance, because commitment introduces risk. Real, uncomfortable risk. You might be wrong. You might pick the thing that doesn't work out. You might waste years on a path that dead ends. You might look foolish. People might judge you, might say, "I told you so," when it doesn't work out. You might have to endure boredom, repetition, the long middle phase where nothing exciting is happening and you have to show up anyway. So instead of committing, you hover. You stay in motion without making progress. You sample and pivot and recalibrate. Floating feels safe. It feels like you're not failing because you haven't really committed to anything yet. Until you realize, usually years later, that you've been drifting. That motion is not the same as momentum. That you've spent so much energy keeping options open that you never developed any of them into something real. Discipline isn't restriction. It's not saying no to good things out of some puritanical sense of self-denial. Discipline is protection. It protects your attention from getting hijacked by every new opportunity, every trending idea, every "you should really look into this" suggestion. It protects your energy from leaking into a dozen different directions, none of them deep enough to matter. It protects your momentum from getting reset every time you doubt yourself or see someone else's success. Disciplined people miss out on a lot. They say no constantly. They let opportunities pass that might have been good. They commit to things before they're certain. And that's exactly why they get somewhere. They decide what matters now, not forever, just now, and let the rest pass without resentment, without the constant second-guessing, without the mental tax of wondering if they should pivot. The real cost of FOMO isn't what you miss. It's what you never build. Shallow skill. You learn enough to be competent, but never enough to be excellent. Never enough to have real leverage. Fragmented identity. You can't explain what you do in a single sentence. You're a patchwork of interests and half-finished projects. A resume full of starts and very few finishes. You've tried a lot. You've sampled widely. But you can't point to anything you've mastered or completed or built from beginning to end. Nothing compounds. Not relationships, not expertise, not reputation, not resources, because nothing stays long enough to matter. You reset too often. You chase the new thing before the current thing has had time to work. And compounding, the force that creates real wealth, real skill, real freedom, only works with time. You don't need more options. You don't need better information. You don't need to wait for more clarity. You need fewer options, chosen deliberately. You need the courage to commit before you're certain. You need to accept that missing out is inevitable and that it's the price of progress, not an obstacle to it. Missing out is not a failure. It's a requirement. Progress demands it. Depth requires it. Expertise depends on it. Next time, we're going to talk about making friends with your limitations and why fighting your ceiling wastes energy you can't afford. We all can't be astronauts, and trying to keep every door open is the fastest way to never walk through one.